This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is David Lenegast, the Executive Chairman of Vinanz PLC. Thank you very much for joining us today. David, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, Mark. Yep, mining Bitcoin happily. And the nice thing about mining Bitcoin is you're making money while you're asleep and while you're awake.
Okay, well, that's always a nice thing to do, isn't it? Of course, there was some news just recently from the company, and the key line from that was you want to be the lowest producer of cost of Bitcoin in the world. Pretty bold statement there.
Yeah, well, we're working with a group called Luxor out of the States who are pretty much experts in milking the ability of your machine, of your Bitcoin miners to operate either at supercharge rate or if the Bitcoin price gets under pressure to save on operating costs. But we're really preparing for the halving that's going to happen in around about April next year. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Bitcoin miners won't be prepared for this. And we're working with Luxor that when the halving happens, we're one of the lowest operating costs in the world per Bitcoin.
Okay. And how are you going to achieve that goal and being one of the lowest operating costs of Bitcoin producers in the world?
Well, there's two aspects to it. One is you can either produce more Bitcoin with the same kit at almost the same price. The other aspect is, as I said earlier, if the Bitcoin price is under pressure, then you can actually sort of derate the machines and operate at a much lower electricity cost. So,
okay.
And the way I like to explain it is it's a bit like having a fast car in the UK. Yeah, everything's speed limited to 155 mile an hour. If you've got a spanked up Range Rover that in Germany can do 190 miles an hour, you can't do that in the UK. So what Luxor have developed is some computing software that goes into the manufacturer's internals of these Bitcoin miners and basically takes out the speed limiter.
Cool.
Now, it's not very good for long-term use, but when we've got the next halving coming up in April, that's not far away. So the general plan is to supercharge the speed of these Bitcoin miners. And typically what Luxor is saying is that, a Bitcoin miner that's rated at 110 terahash per second, which is, principally what our S19J Pros do, they can ramp them up to around about 130 to 140 terahash, which means that the machines calculate a whole lot more calculations per second and has the ability to mine more Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. And we should have the first 100 units in Canada interfered with, for want of a better word, by the end of this week. And operating at much more efficient Bitcoin mining for us.
Okay, so it is like overclocking a processor on a computer, really, to get more out of the existing hardware at the cost of, perhaps component where a bit of an cost in running costs. But you say there this gives you flexibility to either go nuts, so to speak, and mine as much as you can and milk as much as you can before the next halving. Or if the Bitcoin price does drop, you can actually reduce your operating costs. So this is all about flexibility, is it really?
It's about flexibility to monitor the market. And you can change the parameters on all of our machines remotely through Luxor, through their firmware pool. We can change them minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. So we can really milk the asset as hard as we can between here and February.
Okay.
So our whole game, as I've mentioned before, is as many Bitcoin miners as we can get to the fleet, by Christmas time and really build that. I'd like to be, somewhere next year, by the end of next year, if we can work out a way to get to 5,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin miners spinning, that's our goal, and really sort of milk the asset and be a really low operating cost unit. Yeah.
Well, on just getting more miners in place, of course, last time we spoke wasn't so long ago, we talked about the 170 extra miners that were on their way. How are they making their way into service?
Yeah, no, that's going well. We've Luxor are the agent for this, and we're getting ready to sort of move them to our wallet on payment later this week. So that's all going well, and hopefully we'll have them sort of spinning faster by the end of next week. So it's around about a 1st of December switch over to us. and hopefully at a much faster pace than what they're currently mining, which is still pretty fast.
Okay,
and then we've got discussions with our providers this afternoon on firming up the delivery and installation of the next 100 units, which hopefully we'll have installed and spinning, by the end of December.
Okay. And just a final thought then, David, if we're heading in towards this halving in April here and you want to really milk them as much as you can, are you thinking beyond April? Because, of course, after April, it becomes doubly hard, doesn't it, to mine them effectively?
It does. And one of the key decisions that we're going to make today is, do we now upgrade to the newer kit? I mean, there's things like the S19Ks, which operate at a much lower temperature, a much lower kilowatt per terahash scenario. And we sort of looking at, do we start adding in some of the next gen type equipment that mine at 140, 150 terahash. Some of these units are even now doing 200 to 500 terahash. They're very expensive. You're paying a lot per terahash in dollars, and that's really our key metrics. So we'd like to add some next gen kit into this next 100 units that we're looking at deploying by Christmas. The issue with getting next gen stuff is delivery is typically January, February next year. So we want to be spinning Bitcoin, not dreaming of spinning Bitcoin in 3 months.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us that update today, David Lendergast, the Executive Chairman of Vinanz PLC.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.